Hello, good evening, and welcome to our Lasorda Way Coaching Clinic for November 2025. My name is Nathan Klinkenbeard. I'm the Steel Sports Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications, and I just want to welcome everyone to tonight's coaching clinic, and we're excited to have a very special guest with us, Bobby Valentine, as we talk about the topic performing under pressure. So we're excited to get Bobby up here on stage, have 30 minutes with him, a short and sweet coaching clinic, but I know Bobby always has great insight to share with people. So before we get into some questions with Bobby, I just want to mention our Lasorda Way app. If you saw the video at the beginning of the broadcast, please check it out. Grab your phones. We're on Apple, Android. You can find us on the Apple Store, Google Play Store as well. Just search Lasorda Way, and you'll find our app. A lot of great content there: curriculum, practice plans, content, articles, podcasts. So definitely give it a download, and we'd appreciate it. We're going to have a lot of content dropping that's specific to this topic itself, the performing under pressure topic. So that'll be dropping here in the next week or so. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and to introduce Bobby. First and foremost, Steel Sports Advisory Board member. We're very proud to have him on our team. 10-year major league career as a player, and then went on to become a manager, amassed over 1,200 wins, won a National League pennant with the New York Mets. And then Bobby managed also 2 stints over in Japan with the Chiba Lotte Marines. And very exciting to celebrate the 20th anniversary of when Bobby and the Chiba Lotte Marines won the Japan Championship Series. Obviously a great memory for Bobby, and so excited to celebrate that anniversary with him. But if I could, let's bring him up on the stage, and we'll get into it.
Thanks, thanks, Nathan. Great to be with you. Great introduction. 20th year, but still going strong. What we got today?
Absolutely, yeah. So performing under pressure, and I mean, I think this is a great topic. Obviously, with the World Series just finished up, incredible fall classic that we got to witness. 7 games. You could probably say 8 when you had a game go 18 innings. But just so many moments from that series that define this topic, performing under pressure, right? So I want to, so many moments to pick from. I'm just going to start off with Miguel Rojas in Game 7, that 9th inning, and coming up with 2 outs left, of their season and down, and just talk about, as a coach, how can you help players mentally prepare for those do or die last chance moments?
Well, that's what you do. You prepare. And if you're prepared, all that stuff that happens that people call pressure, and to define pressure is what? Performing under the biggest light, having the lead in the play, and being front and center, and people expecting you to deliver your lines. Is that what we're talking about, that pressure of a situation? Or are we talking about something else? Because when the moment arises and you're prepared, the adrenaline flow deals with excitement. It doesn't deal with fear, even though there's a fork in that road from the brain, that comes down, and it either could go to excitement or fear. And a lot of the fear is fear of failure, right? During that moment. So what you have to do is understand when the lights come on, that's exciting, and channel that energy properly. And then part of the preparation is to eliminate distractions. It becomes much more difficult to perform when you're distracted by anything, in particular, hitting a baseball, because it happens in no time at all. And you have to be ready to perform. I hope that answers it a little, but we could go deeper if necessary.
Yeah, and you talk about preparation, and I think this goes to my next question because you have someone like Yoshinobu Yamamoto who pitched 2 games. He just pitched the night before in game 6 through 96 pitches, and then comes in game 7 out of the bullpen. So an unfamiliar role for him, right? But how do you keep players prepared to I'd say handle different roles and really sort of instill that confidence in them to come through?
Well, as a manager, the thing you like least is a surprise. As a player, the same holds true. So sometimes players could be in a situation where they're dealing with a little injury, or they're dealing with a divorce, or they're dealing with a fan who's yelling at them out of the stands, or the number of ways that a player could be distracted. A manager, a coach has got to be kind of in tune with his players to understand where that distraction might be coming from and see if you could turn off the noise. It's hard to do. It's a full awareness situation where you have to understand those around you, and you also have to have help in recognizing distractions in your staff and in your players. And that comes from your lieutenants, on a major league team. It's your coaches and maybe your captain and a couple guys on the team that you lean on, and the trainer, and all the places you could get information. You have to keep those avenues of communication wide open. So that's what a manager could do: recognize it and say, you know, it's okay. I've been through it too. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm with you, and I believe you can. To get that person in the moment, right? I believe you, and I think you can. And then they click on can what, and then they do. It's a real weird thing that goes on.
And a guy like Trey Yesavage, who started the year in single A and then is pitching game 1 of the Fall Classic, and then has the game of his life in game 5. But for our coaches, who are coaching anywhere from 8U to high school and maybe even college, what advice would you give to the coaches who have players that are maybe performing on a big stage to them for the first time? It might be a tournament championship game, or it might be a high school showcase. What advice would you give to coaches?
Yeah, to let the player know that they're not alone, especially pitchers. Pitchers are in the middle of that diamond. They're standing out on a little hill, and sometimes it's the loneliest place in the world. And you have to let them know that you're out there with them, that you believe in them to do what they expect themselves to do. You can't you can't fool the player. The player will have an expectation on what his top level is, and you want to support him in that belief that he can.
And something I wanted to ask you about just team culture, because you've managed here in the States, obviously. You managed in Japan, and two different cultures, really. But just talk about how important is team culture in helping players rise to big moments and handle pressure.
Well, a good culture is a stimulator for uh, positive performance. A bad culture stimulates in the opposite direction. So it's not, be beholden on the coach, or it's not necessary for the coach to think that culture is important. It's totally important and necessary for him to understand culture is important. And culture means that This group that you have can appreciate the members of the group when they do well. You're not always getting the hit. And if you go 2 for 10 instead of 3 for 10, you're hitting 200. But if you take some appreciation in success of a teammate, that 200 kind of has a lesser feel of unsatisfaction. So you build a culture where maybe everyone doesn't love everybody, but everyone appreciates the effort and appreciates often the good results of a teammate, so they could share in that. And that's what that culture thing is all about, getting guys and gals to pay attention to those who are around them and to appreciate anything, appreciate the strikeout sometimes. Hey, that was a tough pitch. You know what I mean? Appreciate the pitch a guy makes and he gives up a home run. Appreciate it with empathy. Oh, I've done that too. I know that feeling. You're not alone. Huh? And that builds a feeling of togetherness, I think.
Well, we talk about players, but coaches have big moments too, right? So, advice for our coaches, our coaches who have to handle those pressure situations and those moments where they have to make decisions. What advice would you give them?
Well, it's the same. You have to be prepared. And your preparation is, the game, the competition, your players, the umpire, the loudmouth parents, the any distractions that might occur during the day with weather or food showing up late or a player coming late to the game. You have to be prepared for those things, so you act in a positive way. Positive to correct something that is incorrect, and positive to appreciate something that's being done correct. Right? You as a coach have to have an awareness of your surroundings and those people in your surroundings that you're responsible for. Huh? So if Billy has a problem with his sinuses, it might be because he's allergic to the cologne that one of the other players is wearing. You know what I mean? And you gotta understand what's going on. And once you do that, as we say with Steel Sports, and it's one of our credos, the kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. And the way that you show someone that you care is by helping them with their distractions so that they can perform up to their capabilities. It's a tough job. Coaches are givers. A lot of coaches have a prerequisite to have a coach on their staff, to have someone who had played. I think having played the sport is one of the last requirements a coach needs. What a coach has to understand is if a guy played, he's usually a receiver, right? He's getting help with his swing. He's getting the pat on the butt. He's being asked if everything's okay in his life. The coach is one that has to give all that and doesn't receive it at all. So, you coaches have to be ready to give it up. Give up everything you have. The best coaches I've ever been around, like Tommy Lasorda, gave of their all. And what he would say at a team meeting to everyone there that he was throwing batting practice to, and he was hitting balls to, and he was taking out to dinner to give them advice on life, he would say, I'm giving everything I have to you guys, but not one of you will ever send me a fruit basket on Christmas or my birthday. But I understand that that's what I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't need anything in return. I mean, once a coach gets that, he becomes selfless and can give those players who are around him what they need.
I heard Dave Roberts talk about he was managing really with his gut in a sense instead of the analytics during the World Series, but he was talking about the trust. that he has with his players and that they have amongst themselves. So, like, how does that trust, if we talk about the word trust, how does that really apply to really helping players or even coaches deal with pressure?
Once again, one of Tommy's greatest credos, and it lives true in my life, is you've got to believe that when a player believes that the coach believes in him, the player then believes. That's what trust is all about. That if a mistake is made, there's an empathy on the part of the coach to understand what the mistake was and try to correct it, not make it the reason for the loss. Huh? And that kind of trust that players have in their manager during a season usually results in a winning effort. But, you mentioned the Japanese team that I managed. I want to tell you one of the cool things they do in their culture. And that is that to win a championship, they believe that the players have to have the trust in the manager. And when you win a championship, then the players take the manager, as you saw in the prelude to this Zoom. They take him and they throw him up in the air, and they catch him. They throw him up in the air, and they catch him. They throw him up in the air, and they catch him. At that time, the coach has to trust the players, huh? Which is kind of a really cool thing. Way to celebrate a championship with demonstrating trust.
Uh, if you could, maybe just a high stakes moment from your career and your time as a manager. Uh, if you can just go back to, obviously you managed over 2,500 games, right? But give us one high stakes moment where you really had to guide your players through some pressure moments.
Wow, I don't ever think that I guided them through the pressure moments. I think that I did what I preached. I tried to make sure that they were prepared. I was prepared enough to hope that they were prepared. But I don't know about um, guiding them during the game. There are times after a game, I think I guided them to the next day, to help them get to sleep at night. I remember one particular game where, it was one of those elimination games. And we were trying to eliminate the other team because we were one up on Sadahata O's SoftBank Hawks. And we were in the last inning. We had a 2-run lead. And with a win, we advance and they go home. And I had my closer on the mound. And you know what usually happens? A walk, an error, and 3 runs scored. And instead of winning, we lose by 1. And now we have to go into the final game of a 7-game series, and the guys were dejected. All the bullpen was already down in the dugout to run out on the field when the 3rd out in the 9th inning was going to be made. The coaches and the statisticians were already down the runway in the kind of backup of the dugout, ready to take the field when we won this game, and we wound up losing. And the guys came into the dugout, and I had to figure out what I wanted to say. And I got them all together. And I told them through my interpreter that I wanted to thank them. I wanted to thank them for making a dream come true, because I was dreaming of playing that 7th game of the playoffs. And if we had won tonight, we never would have gotten to the 7th game. So thank everyone for playing the way you did tonight and giving us a chance to play in that game 7 tomorrow. And they kind of laughed, because that's usually the time, especially in the Japanese culture, for a couple of guys to get undressed in front of the group, but there was no undressing in my grouping.
I do have some questions from
Yeah,
our audience.
come on.
Yeah. So I wanted to we tried to get some questions before we started the clinic, but this is from
Yeah.
Oliver Sebastian, and he asks, "How did you help your players maintain humility and self-awareness while still balancing confidence without tipping into arrogance?"
Oh, If I had that formula, I'd bottle it up, sell it on the street corner, and we'd all be rich and famous, if you know what I mean. But understand that as consistency grows, these players get better and they get up to higher levels. And when they get to the highest level, they've done a lot of stuff to get there. They've been the dude a whole bunch of times to get there. And then they're amongst all dudes. And a few of those dudes rise to that top. And I think of a lot of them are like concert pianists. I mean, they're the top level in what they're doing, but then there's a few who also write the music and conduct it and can play the instruments. You know, the geniuses, the Mozarts, and those type. And what you have to do for humility is let everyone know that there is someone who does what you do and does it a little better, unless your name is Shohei Ohtani. All right. And everybody else has got to understand that and appreciate it. And that's a little humility, but it's difficult for these guys. Believe me, it's difficult. They're when they get to the major leagues, they've been the front of the class an awful lot of times. You know, they've been pampered. They've been given a little bit of the right of way, and they have a problem. Not all, but most have a problem with, taking off the blinders and understanding the world around them. Because to get to that level, blinders are often necessary to have total concentration and dedication on what you're trying to do. Because all these guys, remember this, they're not doing what they're doing at the highest level because they like it. Most of them are doing it because they're good at it. Like Adele said in one of her songs, she said she was too young to choose what she chose to do. You know what I mean? A lot of these athletes, they were too young to choose whether they were going to be an athlete or not. They were just damn good right from the get-go. And they were put into that grouping over there. You know what I mean? And then you have some exceptions that come out of the blue, and they thought they were going to be a tradesman, and when they were making a cabinet for their mother's kitchen, they realized they had some other skill and they became a genius somewhere else. But it's interesting, that question, and I know I talked a lot, but you really don't do it. You try to understand that the world that they are in, and allow them a little space to be less humble than they probably should be. But it's hard to humble them because they've done a lot of stuff.
This next question, I think, applies sports, business, really, in all walks. But this is from Greg Craffigan, and he asks, every team has standout performers. Typically, the top third are self-driven and consistently deliver results. The middle third often thrive with the right coaching and support. What strategies have you used to engage and elevate the bottom third, helping them contribute meaningfully to the team's overall success?
Yeah. Participation is one of the keys to happiness in anything that, you have in a group effort. And I always thought it was really important to involve that bottom third in games, get them into games. When the score was 10-1 on either side, some guys on my team knew they had PT, playing time, coming. That's their opportunity to do what they're doing. When they're not playing, though, I always tried to involve them. When I'd go down to get that cup of water and pass one of them on the bench or leaning against the railing, I'd try to include him in my thoughts. Hey, what do you think? They're going to bring that left-hander in next inning, huh? Make sure you're ready, but not only you, your buddies too, and And the more they were included in the thought process by me and my coaches, it's not a one man thing when you're dealing with 25 guys. In my day, we only had 5 coaches. Now there's 15 coaches because these organizations realize that it's really difficult to get to everyone. It's really difficult to coach 25, as you say, the ones at the end of the bench and the ones in the middle and the ones at the top. The ones at the top get a lot of attention. They don't need it, but they get it.
um, last one. Last one I'm going to ask. So have you ever had to deal with a top player going through a crisis of confidence in an important game or maybe a series? And if so, what did you do to support them?
Well, I would say that every top player I ever had, except for maybe Ricky Henderson and Nolan Ryan, even though one time I could tell you that Nolan Ryan lacked confidence. But it happens. I mean, some of the best hitters that I ever coached, they'd go 0 for 4 and think they were never going to get another hit. Are you kidding me? A guy strike out twice in a game, and he'd be calling, helplines when he gets to the hotel in one game. So it's a constant situation of keeping a belief level. And that's all about establishing those foundations of trust, right? You do that in spring training. You do that in wintertime with a phone call during the holidays, or you do that when a guy shows up and he's lost 3 pounds and you know it, and you go over to him and tell him how good he looks in his uniform. You do all those things from day one, and you build those foundations so that during the tough times, they trust you. When you say you're with them, or when you tell them to be on time, and just the coaching tip for all you coaches who are out there, because you've heard so often about the importance in athletics, especially high-speed athletics, to be on time with the play. You hit the hitter all the time. He has to be on time. Well, if I have a 12 o'clock meeting and I invite you all to be there, the only way you're going to be sure to be on time is to be early. If you come to that meeting late at all, you can't be on time. And that's the same for a lot of athletic events, that you have to have the movement early, starting early. You can always slow it down that megasecond, that fraction of a second, but you can't speed it up the fraction of a second. And you're late. And late in professional and amateur and youth sports is a real bad place to try to compete, because you're catching up. So that's a little word of wisdom for me. If you want to be on time, be early, and don't ever be late.
Love it. Bobby, can't thank you enough, as always. Great insight. Truly appreciate it. And we definitely want to thank everyone for joining us tonight for this Lasorda Way Coaching Clinic. We're going to be back December 15th. We're going to have Robbie Earl join us, a fellow Steel Sports Advisory Board member. Robbie played, I can't say soccer. He was a footballer, Premier League,
football player,
Jamaican national team. And like Bobby, always has great insight for our coaches, our athletes, and our parents. So, Bobby, thank you so much. And to our audience, we really appreciate you joining us tonight. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Great job, Nathan. Thank you.